feels like I've been following this movie for a long-ass time, and in a lot of ways I have. This thing was announced around the time Dragon Ball Super episode 131 aired, which was also the end of the original incarnation of the show because we know it's going to come back. And it all started with that big teaser from Ryo Onishi showing Goku working out before fighting a Saiyan engulfed by a green aura who ultimately turned out to be Broly. And for months and months and months now, we've seen designs, we've seen character sheets, posters, trailers, TV spots, a whole lot of stuff. And a few weeks ago, there was a detailed synopsis from someone who watched the film during the limited pre-release screening, which I read because I wanted to get as much of this movie out of my system already as I possibly could. So when I read these spoilers and did a video on them a while back, I described the film as a 90s Toei movie with modern-day Sakuga and a TV special awkwardly shoehorned in to serve as the first act of the film. So now after seeing Dragon Ball Super Broly, I can definitively say that that is exactly what the movie ultimately turned out to be. The whole backstory stuff, especially Dragon Ball Minus, and even a lot of the stuff about Paragus and Broly ultimately feels like it has no real point in this movie. Dragon Ball Minus very easily could have been just a separate TV special or something, and I think it would have served the narrative of Minus a lot better, because not only do they not expand on Minus, they actually cut scenes out of it. While the other stuff about Paragus and Broly's backstories, how they ultimately end up on planet Vampa, very easily could have been told through a flashback. It did not need to be part of this awkward first act, where we have a bunch of stuff that don't really have anything to do with one another. See, a big criticism of Dragon Ball Minus is that it has no characters. It just has people, quote-unquote, who vomit out exposition for the sake of vomiting out exposition. And that is very much a problem with the first act of this film. There is almost no honest-to-God dialogue in this movie. It is almost all exposition that is there for the audience's sake, and the vast majority of it is absolutely pointless and very easily could have been reworked into more natural dialogue later on in the movie. Never mind the fact that the first act, like I said, a lot of it has nothing to do also with the rest of the storyline of the film, hence why I call it a TV special awkwardly shoehorned into a story it had ultimately not much to do with. The second act is where things start to improve. This is the act where we actually get to see more characters, we actually get to see some really funny gags. And this is the only part of the movie that has an honest-to-God narrative. It's also the part where we're introduced to Broly, where we kind of get to know him, we also meet Sheila and Lemma, we get their relationship building up. And this is easily the best part of the entire movie, because we have an actual honest-to-God fucking story. And while Broly, the new one, is already severely overrated and a lot of his praise is being heaped on what he could be in the future, I will admit that he's a decent enough character in his very first appearance that I could see some interesting things come out of him, but in this film itself, not what he could be, not what if in the future, he's got a sympathetic backstory, but he didn't really blow my mind the way it seems to be blowing a lot of other people's minds. But then we get to the third act, and oh my god, it's just fight scenes going on and on and on. I know Dragon Ball is primarily a fighting-based series, but Jesus Christ, even this was overkill. Even with excellent animators like Tate, Takahashi, Onishi, Umakoshi, Shida, all those guys doing some of the best work of their motherfucking careers on this franchise, it's still almost 40 minutes of non-stop action. And even the small bits and pieces of reprieve that we get from the fighting, like some gags concerning Frieza and Goku and Vegeta, it's nowhere near enough to elevate the absolute mind-numbing boredom on display during the final act. And it also doesn't help that what little semblance of narrative or characterization we had, especially concerning Broly, is completely dropped out of the final act of the movie. I am not kidding when I tell you that once Broly steps off that ship and then he goes off to fight Goku and Vegeta, he is nothing but a screaming, rage-fueled monster for the rest of the fucking movie. He literally has no dialogue. The movie doesn't even try to maybe throw in a little bits and characterization here and there for him to maybe showcase how he's still a nice person despite the circumstances he's put in. No, he's just old Broly. He's just a raging monster, but that's kind of an insult to old Broly because old Broly, at least in his first movie, still had evil bad guy one-liners to give him some characterization, whereas this guy is just a screaming lunatic for the entire rest of his appearances. And while people are gonna balk at what I say now, next, I need some context for why fight scenes are happening. I do not watch Dragon Ball just for the sake of fight scenes. There are a lot better and much more interesting series than Dragon Ball when it comes to the variety of fight scenes, the way fight scenes are presented, and yada yada yada. What I watch Dragon Ball is for simple but effective stories that actually hold up under scrutiny and give some good context to why the fights happen. And this film absolutely does not have that. I am not exaggerating when I say that this movie has some of the least plot of any Dragon Ball film I've ever seen in my entire life. And for me, that is a very big, almost crippling flaw with this entire feature. Like I talked about beforehand, the disparity between the people working on like the audio and the visuals of this film and who's doing the story is night and day. Everyone animating this movie is animating the absolute crap out of it. Sumitomo probably delivers his best soundtrack he's ever done for Dragon Ball, even better than his much lauded Battle of Gods War. And then on the writing front, we have nothing. I think there's even less story here than there was in Resurrection F. Because at least Resurrection F, as stupid and as nonsensical as it was, tried to at least do something with like Goku and Vegeta on a character level. Here, they're just action figures who fight Broly. And then they combine into another action figure called Gogeta, who also fights Broly in what is probably the most boring part of the entire film. I am not exaggerating when I say that the second Gogeta appeared, I just completely mentally tuned out of the movie. Nothing was able to get me to give even the smallest bit of fucks after that. So yeah, Dragon Ball Super Broly. If you're a weirdo like me who actually wants something resembling a narrative out of Dragon Ball, steer far the fuck away from this feature. While the rest of you guys who just want to watch fight scenes, you've probably already seen the movie however which way you have, and you're not going to take anything I say seriously, so yeah.